Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well today. Welcome to the course JMeter from Beginner to Advanced, the powerful hands-on training which also includes web development. The course overview will be installing and setting up JMeter first. That's the first thing we'll need to do, of course. And we can run JMeter in several ways. We'll get more on that later. We'll also look at how a test plan is set up, all of the different components that make up a test plan. And then we'll start recording our first few test scripts as well. And as I said, after recording those test scripts, we're gonna have to emulate user behavior actually. That's going to be one of the heavier parts of this course, that's why it's in the middle as well. And then we'll have to analyze the load metrics. Recording those test scripts may seem like a big task, but it's only about a third or fourth of the work that's actually needed to be done. Some JS manipulation of cookies in this course as well. We'll look at event handlers and we'll also look at the different types of cross-site scripting in here. And then we'll also look at JavaScript cross-site scripting mitigations, because of course we can tell you about the vulnerability, but if we can mitigate it, that's even better. So I hope you're ready. First of all, we're going to be setting up and installing JMeter. We're going to be slowly easing you into the process. There are several ways of downloading JMeter, of running JMeter as well. And then we'll look at the different UI components of what JMeter really consists of, looking at all of the start screen, the thread groups, all of the different samplers, which are basically the requests that we can send, logic controllers with an if, else loop, etc., while the pre and the post processors to perform actions before and after our requests, and then of course assertions as well, because we want to verify our responses. Running a dumb script can be disadvantageous, because if it's not running correctly, you might be generating the incorrect type of load as well. We'll be looking at timers to emulate user behavior more realistically, and then we'll also be looking at the configuration elements, listeners, and recording of a test script. Now that recording is going to have a separate chapter as well, in which we'll select the template first and we'll explain you the difference of think times. Configure your browser, that's also important of course, and then we'll also look at how we can group our calls into transactions. We'll also look at the result tree to view the responses and the requests, and then we'll start in the middle of a test plan as well, because sometimes you might have recorded a bunch of test plan already, but you might need to insert a few requests down the middle. In section 4, we'll be emulating user behavior more carefully with properties, think times, thread distributions, timers, and then we'll also look at the different types of load testing in this chapter, because of course there are many different types. As everything in life, there's a lot of details to this. Then in section 5, we'll be analyzing that load that we've just been generating as well. That's important. How do we interpret this? What's the 90th, the 95th, 99th percentile? How do we read those? Analyzing our reports depending on a stress load or duration test. All of these different things require different reports as well, so that's something we have to take into consideration, and that's something we're going to handle in this chapter as well. Then in section 6, we'll be looking at JavaScript manipulation and how we can manipulate event handlers, cookies, what cross-site scripting is, and in what contexts it can occur, because that is something that is often missed by cross-site scripting students, is the different type of contexts. And then we'll move on to some mitigations as well, because of course we can tell you about this vulnerability type, but it's important that you understand that there are some things we can do to at least lessen the risk or impact of an attack. And then for the prerequisites of this course, at least a basic understanding of the HTTP method is required. Some requests and responses, understanding what a request is, what a response is, API requests as well. If you've had those, that's a big plus. or at least if you know what those are. If you've done them, that's even better. And then when it comes to operating system, it doesn't really matter, since JMeter is a Java application which can run platform independently. A 4-core processor is required, but the more cores you have, the more virtual users you can spin up. And the 16 gigabytes of RAM should be able to emulate about 1,000 users and leave some room for storage as well. Some room for the OS, I mean, of course. As for storage, we'll need about 20 gigabytes of free disk space. And the recommended is that you have Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. There are other operating systems, I'm aware, but usually they run on the Unix kernel, so that's okay. And when it comes to browser, I would also recommend Firefox. Why is that? Because Firefox can set their proxy independently from your system, so that way I can record only the traffic coming from Firefox if I want to, and not the traffic from my whole system. And then of course Java Virtual Machine is also recommended to be installed. If it's not installed, you can do so by the link on screen. So that's it for the introduction. I look forward to diving in, and I'll see you in the next section.